Good morning, Smiles at Sea. It's Dr. G here with one of our esteemed vendors that you will be able to meet on the Utopia cruise, April 25th through the 28th. Don't forget, mark your calendars. And this is one of my most favorite things that I get to do. I get to introduce somebody who has such an amazing legacy in dentistry because Herb here is the VP of Business Development for Risk Strategies. And I have to tell you, when you start to think about risk, you start to wonder, what if? What if? And he's got a lot of answers to that question as we go through this discussion today. Herb, good morning. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Hey, good morning, Dr. G. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, so a little bit about me is that I started off working in insurance for my parents' insurance agency. So I actually started, when I was in high school and in college, just doing back office paperwork, helping out around everything. After I graduated from undergrad, I had little too much of my parents, so I was ready to go off and do my own thing. So I ended up becoming a financial advisor for a few years, and then through COVID, things had just changed. Right, the industry was changing, being able to see people was changing, and so at that same time, I was talking to my parents, and they're like, "Oh, well, hey, do you still have your insurance licenses?" And I was like, "I sure do." And I ended up, being able to come back and work for their agency for a bit. About a year into that, they ended up being acquired by Risk Strategies, which is a team that we're a part of now. And it's been wonderful because through Risk Strategies, we've been able to create a national dental team that is focused on working with dental practices and dentists themselves.
Well, I love that you said that because my very first thing that I wanted to point out to all of our viewers is that you are the only nationally recognized team to deal with dentists and their insurance. And I think that's a really big claim to fame. And if you're going to determine who to work with in the marketplace, well, somebody that's nationally recognized, I think, comes with a good bit of credibility.
I would say so. I mean, I
Yeah,
would want to work with a team that specializes in what you do. So,
exactly.
yeah.
I love it. So the first question I have for you today is, you know, what types of insurance do you offer?
Yeah, so we're truly a one-stop shop, insurance brokerage. And what that means is, people might think of, oh, one-stop shop, maybe that's malpractice, maybe that's property. Well, it's everything. And what I mean by that is that it is malpractice, it is business insurance, it is workers' comp, it is group benefits, it's benefits in general for an individual person. If people were curious about their own personal needs, so if they wanted to have personal life insurance or even home and auto insurance, that's something that we
Wow.
can help out with because we've got our own personal private client side that would be able to help out with situations like that.
And I'm assuming that when you're able to kind of bulk all of those things together through business and life, that the savings is probably pretty amazing.
You know what? The savings can be amazing. One of the biggest differences that it makes between, in an everyday person's life is that,
Yeah.
if it's coming to the end of the month or the end of the year and you're trying to figure out your finances and you're trying to figure out your insurance situation, you may be calling three or four different people
Gosh.
just to figure out, like, what do I have? Where is it? Who am I giving my money to?
Yes.
And for us, one of the best things about being a one-stop shop is that you only have to contact us. And then we'll let you know what the status is of every single policy, whatever it is, in terms of, if you need to make a payment, if you need a certificate of insurance, if you need proofs of coverage, whatever it is, we're able to do that for an individual or for a dental practice.
And I have to tell you, I love that because as you know, go through everyday life, time really is money because if you have to spend all of that time on the phone, contacting all these different places, figuring out from multiple different sources, I can't even imagine, especially when I know that, you know, this year in North Carolina, where I live, we were impacted by so many natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, things that have put dentists completely out of business, displaced them from not only their homes, but their businesses as well. So I can see the value in just having one phone call to make and feeling so confident that it's going to be easy. What other things can you think of associated with that that might be important?
Yeah, so specifically thinking about North Carolina, or for me, I'm in Dallas and Texas, and so we have a lot of issues with Houston every now and then because of the storms that can happen there, or just what natural weather events in general. And one of the biggest things that I see with a lot of dental practices is that they may not truly understand the difference between flood insurance and property or damage insurance to their practice. So for a lot of the people in North Carolina, that would have experienced flood damages, those aren't going to be typically covered by their regular business insurance policy. And the reason for that is because flood insurance is regulated by FEMA. And so because the government regulates flood insurance, the private insurance companies, they don't touch it. So I don't think
Oh,
many
wow.
dentists or dental practices really understand that with their insurance. So they're like, oh, well, we had a flood damage, we should be covered. Well, because it's regulated by the government, that's something that the private insurance company doesn't offer. And to be able to have coverage for the flood insurance from an event like a hurricane, you have to have flood insurance through FEMA or through the government for that. And so that's a huge difference that, I don't think everybody understands. And that's something that, we're more than happy to help discuss. Another situation is just the property coverage amount in general. I don't think many people really understand it. They're like, well, hey, maybe I've got an older practice with some older equipment and, it's really not worth that much. Well, if you have the right policy, you can get everything for a replacement cost. And the replacement cost means that, if everything was gone and you had to replace everything brand new, that's the amount of coverage that you want to have, right?
Right.
So instead of having to, if you have that situation where there's a fire with your practice. And now you have to worry about, oh my gosh, what happens now? And so what happens then is that you basically become a de novo, right? You have
Oh,
to, finish out your entire practice. You got to put in the fixtures, the finishings, you have to purchase all brand new equipment. And if you
yes.
have the coverage amount from beforehand where you're thinking about, oh, well, I don't have that much stuff that's worth that much, or the value is less. Well, then you may have to then purchase old used equipment again. And personally, if something were to happen, I want to have new stuff. So I would, that's what we would recommend. We want to make sure that people have an adequate amount of coverage when it comes to their property or their contents
Yes.
to make sure that they can be well taken care of if there was ever a situation that was as devastating as, the loss of a practice. Same
Yes.
thing with business interruption insurance,
Oh my
making
gosh,
sure
yes.
that, if you're not able to practice, you're losing income. What are you going to do then? Not every policy offers the same amount of business interruption insurance. So making sure that they have an adequate policy in place to cover the potential losses of income that a practice can experience is make or break. A lot of people may not be able to open up their doors again because of the huge loss that they have. A lot
Yes.
of people probably have loans with banks, that they have to be able to pay off of. There are a ton of expenses involved, and we really help make sure that they're taken care of adequately in case something were to happen.
And I think that's so important because being underinsured or non-insured, you know, in this past couple of years, the fires in California, the floods and the hurricanes, all of those things can significantly impact your business. But once they do that, they're going to impact your life and your livelihood with your family. And I think just those risks are just not risks that I'm willing to take. So I'm excited to have you share so much of that with our attendees. And then, lastly, thinking about our attendees, we've got a good many dentists and we've got a good many assistants, hygienists, and administrative folks in the audience. And I started thinking insurance has a way, in my opinion, of building culture and loyalty in a practice. What do you think is the best opportunities to do that?
I think realistically, well, one, you're touching on a great point because something that I hear every single, more and more, whether it's a new conversation or from year to year, is being able to retain employees and retain, the right
Yes.
employees, right? The people that you want to build your culture with, right? You want to have a sustainable culture. You want to have, a welcoming environment for your patients. And part of that, of being able to build that is how are you showing your appreciation to your team? And I think insurance could be a really good solution for that. And what I mean by that is that being able to look at what group benefits are available. So, maybe that's medical insurance, maybe that's short-term or long-term disability, maybe that's offering a small life insurance policy, to somebody. Those small little things, they're able to really provide a huge benefit that could be life-changing for a dental team, assistants, hygienists, the practice owner themselves. And as most of dental practices themselves are small businesses, they have
That's
the
right.
ability to create those programs. And one of the really fortunate things about our national presence is that we have contracts with all of the major insurance companies that offer those benefits. So we
Oh,
would be
wow.
able to customize a plan specifically for a practice depending on, you know, what the size is, you know, not everybody's budget is the same, and we understand that. So we'd be able to, you know, customize that aspect as well. So I think
Sure.
maybe potentially, you know, discussing, you know, hey, are we offering benefits, you know, besides just a great work environment, or, you know, Friday's Chick-fil-A
Yes.
day. What else can we offer for our wonderful staff to make sure that they're there for the long term? I think that's something that could be really beneficial.
I completely agree. And I think out of the box solutions, like working with a company that you're already working with for business insurance or malpractice and all the things that you offer, is just a win-win. You're already there. You're still just that one phone call. And I love that. Um, well, Herb, it has been great hearing a little bit about what you do and how you can share that with our attendees. And I know that they're going to be lined up to meet you when we get on the cruise April 25th through the 28th, Utopia, the biggest ship. And guess what? Don't forget your vacation insurance, maybe. Herb, you gonna hook us up with that too?
Hey, you know what? I could definitely, you know what? We could definitely figure out some options for you, whatever it is.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, it has been great being with you this morning, and we will see you on the cruise soon. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thank you so much, Dr. G.
Thanks, Herb.